Hi. Oh, welcome, guys. So welcome to our weekly live. I've got joining me here. My name's Loz. I'm a healthy habit coach. I've got Chelsey Jean and Dr. Oz. And we've got many people sitting here live with us inside of Zoom, as well as on Facebook. And today, our conversation piece is all about gut health. Because a few people have asked if we could chat about this in a little bit more detail from our unique perspectives.
The feedback, Loz, is really bad.
I can hear myself twice.
So you guys might just be best to join my computer, do you think?
I can go to another room, don't worry.
We are right next to each other, Oz and I, in the same room.
See you. They're kicking me out.
He's going to come back. Just pause. How about you just mute? Just mute your computer.
And then?
Mute it. Mute your mic. I think that gets rid of the feedback. There you go.
Yes, heaps better.
Yep.
So, Dr. Oz, you're going to have to do hand signals.
You have to do hand signals.
You just get him down.
We weren't sure how this is going to work today because Oz and I are actually literally like, he's just over there. He's just over that way. And hold on, we'll wave to each other. Opposite. We weren't sure if it would work well if we were in the same room physically, but yeah, it looks like we're going to get feedback. But yes, let's start that again. So welcome to live television, guys. I'm Loz. I'm healthy habit coach, and today we're speaking about gut health. Sorry about for the double start this morning, but we come live here every week for you guys to empower you and educate you about what you can do proactively for your health. So every single week we discuss a different topic. There are three of us, so we all have very unique backgrounds. So if this is the first time you've been joining us, welcome. We love having you here. Please do not be afraid to ask us questions. We always love to hear from you. And the more information you can give us about the stuff that you're looking to learn about, the more detail we can get in these weekly chats. And we're here for you guys, right? We're not here just to preach, you know, it's all about actually giving you what you want. So my name's Loz. I am a healthy habit coach. So I teach people how to optimize their eating, their breathing, their sleeping, their moving, and their hydrating by releasing the habits that are holding them back from realizing their potential so they can live an unstoppable, happy, health, and vital life. And I've got Dr. Oz here. He will introduce himself. I will mute my mic so he can have his.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Oz from Vitality. I'm a peak performance and integrated clinician, and I help women to reduce symptoms of pain and inflammation. So we're based here in Brisbane. I'm happy to be here with you today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chelsey Jean. I love talking and educating everything about the lymphatic system. It's a very massive system in your body that doesn't get a lot of talk, positive that is. So I like to educate people how you can move your lymphatic system at home, or you can come into my clinics. I've got two clinics in Brisbane, one at Capella and one at Springfield. Oh.
And guys, we come from all different backgrounds. So the reason we wanted to do these lives for you is that it gives you different perspectives. Even though we talk about the same topics, we may have different voices that may resonate with you in the way that you need. And that's the thing about empowering yourself to be educated. Sometimes we limit ourselves to one voice, and that voice doesn't always work. And then we end up being frustrated. And frustration can lead to stress. Stress can lead to an upset in your microbiome or your gut. And then you might end up with a whole heap of symptoms and wonder why you're not getting unstuck. And maybe one of those things is actually your gut. And so today's conversation, we're really going to be guided by each other's intuition and the stuff that we do personally when we work with clients. So the way we like to start these segments is to sort of chat about the topic, our own perspectives and what our experience has been working within the space of the issue that we'll be discussing, and then providing maybe some solutions or some opportunities to educate you so then you can start to use that information and integrate it into your own health plan. So might just start with Chelsey, considering she's unmuted. So I guess in terms of your practice and what you see in clinic, what is your experience with people and their gut health, and what would be some of the biggest things that you've noticed in your scope in naturopathy and lymphatics that indicate that people might have something going on with their gut health?
Yeah, Loz. So the lymphatic system and the gut are really tightly related. There is over 300 lymph nodes in your belly, like in your gut, and it's responsible for maintaining the fluid balance. It's responsible for fat absorption. So you think about weight gain, not being able to lose weight, that type of thing. But also when we talk about fat absorption, it is about the transportation of fats and hormones and vitamins, around vitamin D, around the body. So the transportation of those fats and your immune system, your gut associated lymphatic tissue, there is, 70% of your immune system is in your gut. So massive, really, when we're talking about the lymphatic system, and the immune system, protecting you from harmful bacteria and pathogens and toxins, like in your belly. There's trillions of that microbiome that live in your belly. So things that we see in clinic, definitely constipation. I had a client this week who was only going to the toilet, we're going to say poo, was only pooing once every 8 to 10 weeks, right? Once every 8 to 10 weeks. So her system was so toxic, septic, really. And her co-workers out at Ipswich Volvo, I think they work, said, you have to come in, you have to go and see, get some lymphatic work done. She's now pooing twice a day. She is feeling so much more alive instead of scared and sick. Other professionals that she went and saw said that she would only be able, for her to poo once a week was going to be great. And yeah, so definitely constipation, bloating. We see a lot of bloating, a lot of constipation. The gloves help so much massaging children. Now, babies eat. When a baby eats, they poo. So if we need to, every time we eat, we should be pooing. The poo doesn't have to wait all and hold hands and all just come out at once, like once a day or once every couple of days. So that's what we see in clinic. And then we can talk about anxiety. I think if you want to, you can cover the anxiety and that types of things. But constipation, your immune system, the white blood cells, like all of that has got to do with the lymphatic system and gut. So yeah, all the things that we talk about, you will feel better doing when it comes to lymph, and like the healthy diet, the moving your body, the drinking water, like all of those things, super important when it comes to gut health and lymphatics.
And I love that you mentioned such a variety of symptoms, Chelsey, because when your gut isn't working, there's things called symptom pictures in naturopathy and other types of integrative therapies. You talk about symptom pictures, and it's, these are the things that happen, and it starts to paint a picture of what's actually going on the inside. And a lot of people don't realize that some of the external symptoms that they're actually presenting will give a really good indication of what's going on internally and what they can't see. And the biggest challenge with certain medical models is that a lot of the symptoms are treated rather than the cause. And so, if you've got acne or bloating or tiredness or weight gain, what normally happens is a patient or a client would see that and go, oh, well, I need to go lose weight. So then they go speak to a dietitian or somebody down that particular vein. And that may get them, some symptom relief, and they might start to notice a shift in that thing. But the reality is it sustainable? Is it a sustainable approach when really we're dealing with the chicken, not the egg? And sometimes we need to deal with the egg. We need to unwrap the layers of the onion to get to the core issue and deal with the thing that's causing it. Because in terms of like the laws of cause and effect, unless we address the cause, we're consistently just putting the Band-Aid on, putting the Band-Aid on, putting the Band-Aid on, which is where people end up in chronic condition states where they've got recurring symptoms, or something that leads to something that leads to something, or in the reverse, where they've been prescribed medication and then that's then caused a whole heap of other symptoms that then they need another medication for. and they end up in this cycle of going down all of this pharmacological shit show.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they're not getting any better. So I'd really like to know, Oz, in your experience, so I might go at the end, but in your experience, I guess, in what you're seeing in clinic, what are some of the symptoms and some of the biggest issues that you are unpacking when it comes to people and their gut? 'Cause I know this is something you're all over.
Yeah. So that's what they say now, no? That the microbiome is the new genome. So it's all the connections that our bowel has with all the systems in the body. And that's all the sort of symptoms that you can get, like from this bloating, obviously is the number one symptom, pain, constipation, diarrhea, but then you go all the way to lack of concentration, to headaches, migraines, and many other things. In my experience, what I work with in terms of bowel disorders is the connection between or the stages in terms of a chronic disease and inflammation. So everything starts, inflammation is the first stage. So everything starts with inflammation in the body. And once that inflammation has been there for a long time and becomes a systemic inflammation, then you start getting the second stage of the problem, which is toxicity. When you get toxicity, you get four main systems that get damaged. The first one is the digestive system, then the lymphatic system, the endocrine system, which is the hormones, and the circulatory system. So by the time you get to chronic disease, when most people go to the doctor and the doctor treats them for hypertension, diabetes, or whatever you want, the arthritis, whatever thing, if you ask these patients, most of them will have digestive problems. Most of them will have lymphatic problems. Most of them will have circulatory problems, mostly if they're women. And that's just the normal process of any chronic disease. You go from 4 stages. Stage 1 is inflammation. Stage 2 is toxicity. Again, toxicity is where the digestive system starts giving problems. And you can treat the chronic disease. You can treat even the digestive problem. But if you don't go to the root of the problem, it just keeps coming back. And that's why most of the patients, when they come here to the clinic, they come saying, I have been treated I have been bloated all my life. And I get the antibiotics, and I was treated for Helicobacter pylori. I have been treated for this and that, and I still get the same problem. Yes, because they have been treating just the consequence or the effect of the cause and not the cause. And the cause is usually go all the way back to reducing inflammation. And before inflammation is going back to what we talk week after week after week, the five basic things that you have to learn. And that's, I think, every single time we get here, we're going to get to the same point: eating, sleeping, drinking, moving. And what was the 5th one? Stress, relaxing. So doing those 5 things are going to help a lot. You don't know how much. That's the first step of your treatment. Any treatment that you want to start has to start with those 5 steps. Then you can go for the medication. Then you can go to supplements. Then you can go to many other things. But if you don't change these 5 things, you still have the cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yes, you can improve, but it's like when I get people, like I always put this example: if you get emphysema because you smoke, and we give you treatment for that, but you keep smoking, what makes you think that you are going to get your lungs better? No, you have to stop smoking. Well, your diet is your smoking. You're not sleeping is your smoking. You're not drinking water is your smoking. So if you don't change those things, it's not going to be a long-term improvement.
Definitely, Oz. And what I've been finding lately is people are making some changes, but they'll make changes to one. There's like, oh, okay, well, I'm drinking more water, but now I'm up peeing all the night, so I'm not sleeping. Or I'm drinking more water, but I'm now having more McDonald's. Or like they compensate. They're like, oh, okay, well, I'm doing this one thing different, and then something else keeps it skew-whiff. And do you see that too, guys?
Yeah, and I find from a personal perspective, because this is where I like to participate in these conversations, because I've been through lots and lots of medical challenges. It is almost just like a compensatory thing that we do as humans, where it's like, well, I've done this, so I'm going to counteract that with this. And so it's not so bad because I'm doing this positive thing, right? Good on me, pat on the head, but also, you know, in other ways you're not looking. And so that's why when we are looking at gut health, a lot of the challenges that I see, I guess, as a practitioner is that people come to me a lot of the time because they want to get fit or they want to lose weight or their sleep is shit or their whatever it is. But when we actually address the stuff that's underneath and we realize that they have dysbiosis, where they have a dysregulation of good versus bad bacteria in their gut, you know, when we can address that through normally dietary input and reduction of stress, because people don't realize like stress manifests itself in lots of ways in different people. Your association with stress can also be skewed. Example, when I was younger, my perception of stress was very, very high. And even though I may not have been in a stressful situation, I would produce these stressful situations mentally, and then that would have an effect on my body. So I was very susceptible to gut-related disorders. I actually had Helicobacter pylori. I got diagnosed with that when I was 16 years old, and I remember going on this mass amount of antibiotics. I had to see a gastroenterologist, and this is before I even started getting sick. Technically, I got that way back ages ago. I had what do you call it? Glandular fever, and then ended up with that going on. So from a young age, there's a lot of stuff going on in my gut. And at no point did anybody start to talk about my stress levels. There was no conversation around that anywhere. It was like, here's a bunch of medication. Let's treat the symptoms. Let's get rid of the bad bacteria. Let's treat that and move on. But it's interesting because I didn't deal with the stress and because I was managing through, you know, having too much alcohol, eating too much sugar and trying to compensate for the stress in those ways. What do you think happened to the gut? My gut ended up perpetuating the cycle of all of the disease, and I ended up with a gut-related disease called inflammatory bowel disease. So I still believe that because I didn't manage a lot of those inputs, and you know, my food wasn't great, my sleep wasn't great, all of that stuff then manifests itself invisibly to my eye. I had no idea until I started getting physical symptoms. So my biggest symptoms were developing IBS. So irritable bowel syndrome, that was the first thing that happened. And so all of this food started upsetting me. I got diagnosed with that. And then I was told to follow a specific eating protocol, which is fine, but I didn't eliminate the stress, right? So of course it doesn't quite fix the problem. And then I ended up pooping blood. And that is a very scary thing to happen when you are in your early 20s or in your prime of your life. You're going out all the time and then you get very, very, very sick. And that for me was a big king hit. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily where people need to get to, but I feel like for a lot of people, the only way they stop stressing is for something catastrophic to happen. And for some reason, we have programmed ourselves to not listen to our body intuitively. We're actually programmed to bypass any intuitive awareness and to just be productive all the time. So when I got diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease, now that's IBD, not IBS, and people get confused. They go, I have IBS. I'm like, well, I have IBD. It's like a autoimmune disease. That was really the catalyst for me to start looking at that alternative path. Very, very grateful. I had a mother who was very open to integrative medicine at the time because, you know, without my mum's input as a nurse and a practitioner, I certainly wouldn't be having this conversation with you guys. Like I wouldn't be here. But the first thing that happened when I actually started seeing my functional medical person was that, how's your stress levels?
Yeah.
You know, that, and it was a very interesting thing to start with because I was like, nobody's ever really asked me about that. And then I realized that my perceptions of stress were very skewed. So with lots and lots of work, learning how to switch off my brain, changing my diet specifically to address the bacteria and doing elimination diets, getting diagnosed with SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth. People don't know about that. I know Oz and you, Chelsey, both are very aware of those two things, but people don't understand that just because they eat healthy or they get put on a healthy diet, it doesn't mean that it's actually helping their gut, because there are certain types of foods that it can actually encourage those bad bacteria to continue to flourish. And actually, Oz and I had this conversation this morning about if you've got this disruption of bad versus good bacteria, if you start taking good things like probiotics and greens, it actually feeds the bad bacteria first, right? Because it can't get to the good stuff. And I know Oz will have something to say about this, but a lot of people don't realize this. And so they get told that they have gut problems, and then they just go, what do? They go get probiotics. But you've got to weed, seed, and then feed the garden, which is your gut. And so if you don't weed it and then seed it and then feed it, the problem is if you start putting all of these nutrients into your gut, well, it's also going to feed the weeds as well. Yes, you want to grow this beautiful, magnificent rose bush, but also probably all the weeds are going to grow around the bush as well. And so I think that's a really big thing for people to realize, that they are actually in control a lot of the time, but they are heavily reliant on somebody else telling them something. And when you can look at your eating and your breathing, and when I talk about breathing, I'm talking about breathing for performance, but also for stress reduction. Really easy thing to help reduce stress, to move enough. You know, when you don't move enough, what happens to your bowel? You get constipated as well, because you're not getting that motility through your bowel. To hydrate enough, when you don't drink enough water, first thing that happens is you get constipated, you get headaches, you get all these symptoms. And then sleep, obviously, sleep anchors everything. And the majority of people are walking around like zombies because they're trying to do too much. They're feeling the pressure of the cost of living. And they don't actually realize that during your sleep, your body detoxifies itself. Your brain, your lymphatic system detoxifies itself as well. And so if you're not getting that stress reduction and you're not getting that regulation in your circadian rhythm overnight, and you're not getting those hormonal mixes in the right timing, it'll disrupt your day. And then you're going to fucking feel stressed. And then your perception of stress will be different. And so it's coming back to all of those things we can control. And all of us here in this chat today, we are either dealing with it through clients or dealing with it through personal experience. But, you know, a lot of people listening might not realize that they actually have a gut problem until they've actually heard what we've just said and gone, you know what, I have all those symptoms. Maybe it's my gut. Maybe I haven't put on weight because of menopause. Maybe that's some of it, but maybe also it's my gut. Maybe this depression and anxiety that I've been diagnosed with. Yeah, yep. A lot of the time that can be a gut challenge. You know, not always, but there are lots of papers that will show you the link between the gut and the brain axis, right? And people don't realize necessarily, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety disorders for ages, high dose medications. And I haven't needed any of that stuff for ages because I look after my gut now. And the biggest thing is when I eat bad food, what happens to my mental health?
That's right.
Yeah, right. When you eat food that isn't great for you,
yep.
Yeah, you have that vagus nerve connection. And so then you get brain fog, and then you get irritable. And so, you know, when you actually work out that your gut speaks to your brain in all sorts of ways, a lot of people's symptoms can actually be alleviated by addressing bad gut stuff. Oz, I've got you on mute, so because we have to play this weird game where one of us mutes and the other one mutes. But you look like you want to say something.
Yes. Okay. So so one of the things, talking about what you just said, is, for example, most of my patients when they come here, one of the questions is, how is your bowel, blah blah blah, and most of the patients are already taking probiotics. Yeah. So my example with people taking probiotics is, and that's the first thing, like every time someone goes with bloating to the GP or bloating with a lot of practitioners like integrative or any other type of practitioners, the first thing they prescribe is probiotics. Now, let's see this. Let's talk a little bit about SIBO. SIBO, if we know a little bit of anatomy, the first part of the bowel is the small intestine. That usually doesn't have any bacteria. The bacteria is in the long intestine. That's the good bacteria. So when you have SIBO, the bacteria is on the small one, which means if you give prebiotics or you have a really clean diet and you give a lot of fiber to your bowel, the bacteria that is eating that food is a bad bacteria. So you are feeding the bad bacteria and nothing is getting to your good bacteria. So that's the first thing. That's the first kind of problem when you don't know exactly how to treat something from the root. Now, giving probiotics, I always put this example. Imagine that your bacteria, your good bacteria, is your army. Yes, it's an army. It's your soldiers. They are in the middle of the war, and they have been there for a month, and you haven't given them any food for 1 month. So they are weak. And instead of sending them food, you send more soldiers. Yes, these soldiers are happy and strong and those things, but in 1 month, they're going to be starving. And then you give more soldiers and more soldiers and more soldiers, but no food. So it's no point. You're getting to that point of getting too many people there. A lot of them are dying. and no one is getting something to eat. Yeah, so that's why not treating, not knowing, first of all, what is the real problem. If you have bloating, chances are, and this is very typical, that you maybe have SIBO. It's a very common disease that now is diagnosed. The problem is that it's something that was just discovered in 2006, so it's something not that old by a gastroenterologist. So it's not by someone out of the medical system. It's someone it's a doctor with a specialty in gastroenterology. He was the one who discovered SIBO, and since then, many gastroenterologists still don't know about that. Like they still put you on a colonoscopy and things like that. Everything is normal. Your bloating is just take some probiotics. That's all the advice. And I know that because my wife has had 3 times colonoscopy and always comes like nothing. But when we do the SIBO test, it's completely positive from minute 1. So that means that there's so much bacteria in her bowel that hasn't been treated. And if you go with the GP and show the results, say, okay, let's treat this with antibiotics, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to kill not just the bad one, but also the good one now. Mm-hmm. So again, is number one thing is knowing if you have this diagnosis, is SIBO. It's a very common diagnosis nowadays. Like most of people, I would say that most of people with bloating is almost sure it's at least a 50% probabilities to get to be positive for SIBO. Then the treatment, the protocol is completely different. You don't give probiotics. You don't give prebiotics. You start with something like to help the motility. Then you start giving something to help the digestion. And then after that, you start giving some pre and probiotics. But first you have to kill the bacteria, the bad bacteria, start the bacteria, kill the bacteria, and then you can start replacing or refeeding the good bacteria. And that's one of the biggest problems I get with my patients.
Actually, I like that you mentioned that, because it means that you've got to take certain foods out of your diet as well. And this is going back to that conversation of, not everything is the best choice. So things like fruits, and things like that contain lectins as well. Like people don't realize that stuff actually feeds the bad bacteria as well, even though it's a healthy food. And so this is where speaking with somebody who understands about gut health can be really important, because if you try and do things yourself, sometimes you miss a really important chunk of the information. So you might get 90% of it right, but you miss that 10%, which is the most crucial thing. And that if you're not starving the bacteria and then using something in order to kill the bacteria off, then it's only going to come back, right? And Chelsey, you would see this a lot as well.
Yeah, doing it by diet is really hard. Doing it just by diet, if somebody's body is riddled with candida and all of the bad parasites and things like that, it is. I think I've had maybe 3 clients who have been able to stick to the diet for 12 months and do it that way. So we do it so much easier in clinic. We do a spit test for candida, and then we use our good gut protocol to get rid of the baddies, because it's those baddies that rub together and send the signal up the vagus nerve to get dopamine, serotonin, and how you're going to feel that day. So we want the goodies sending the messages of happiness, not the baddies. So yeah, definitely get out the machine guns and the cannons and everything that we can to kill off the baddies, those soldiers in there that aren't giving us the good thoughts and are causing, all of the bloating and pain and constipation and, all of those things. So yeah, so we do a good gut protocol here. To 90% of our clients, we start out with a gut protocol, and then also our hair test, which discovers which foods are the best for our clients to have. So that's pretty much our protocol in here as well, guys.
And once people have been sorted with their gut health, so let's say somebody has SIBO, or somebody has parasites, or somebody has candida overgrowth, whatever it is that's going on where there's dysregulation in the bacterial ratios, then what, right? So the thing is, people go, oh yeah, I've done this thing and I had SIBO and I did this stuff, and then 12 months later they're back to the same symptoms. The biggest trouble is that people get addicted to going on like a program, and then they think that they're cured. And then what happens to their eating habits and their stress habits without doing that work and I guess developing more mental fitness and understanding what the things are that have actually gotten them into that stressful situation in the first place. Because a lot of people forget that, you know, and Oz actually mentioned this last week when we talk about food. He said 90%, there was 3 ways that people perceive food, and correct me if I'm wrong, trying to quote you, but he said 90% of people view food as a social conduit. They use it for social purposes. 9% of people view what was it? What? Oh, it's fuel. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I just got distracted then. 9% view it as fuel, and then only 1% actually view food as medicine. And so with that really skewed perception of how food can actually work for us, chances are, unless you do that work and unblocking some of the things that are causing you to get stressed, if you are viewing food as a social thing, or you're using it as it becomes the thing that is triggered by stress, where you eat mindlessly. Because a lot of people use food as a source of soothing. You know, there are food addictions out there, and you know, most of us have been in situations where you had a bad day, and women are the worst, and they go home and eat a tub of ice cream. And you hear stories like this all the time. Like, I went and ate a block of chocolate and I had a tub of ice cream, because food is used as a way to soothe or social interaction. And so with all of that up against us, chances are when you do follow a protocol, whether it's a good gut protocol or whatever it is, that, you know, Recibo protocol, then how do we educate people moving forward to use food as medicine? What kind of things should people be eating? And this is basic information here to us, but what should a balanced diet look like so that your chances of developing more gut challenges down the track are lessened? Does that make sense to ask that question?
Yeah, like you just made me think about when a kid falls over and hurts themselves. So what are they? Oh, don't cry. Here's a lolly. You know, don't let your emotions out. Don't shut up. Here's a lolly, or here's an ice cream, or whenever you're feeling, you get thrown. And those habits start from when you're so young. Yeah.
Yeah, we use food as a reward a lot of the time.
Yes.
Don't we? And not great food. Like, wouldn't it be great if you fell over and cut your hand, and then your mum gave you a strawberry?
Yes. Can we please start that?
Some celery stick.
Yes. Can that just be a thing from now on, please? For everybody listening to this, stop that now. Yeah. So yeah, foods definitely, but we have to be able to digest them as well, Loz, and you know, break them down. So as clean as possible with your foods. And like we've spoken about many times before, break it down into your protein, your carbohydrates, and your fats. Really important to do. And yeah, veggies, greens, all of those things. If you do have issues, so some people do have an issue with fiber. Okay. Yeah. The problem is that everyone think, oh, I'm constipated, I need to fill up on fiber. That does not work for everybody as well. So everyone is individual when it comes to foods too. Oz, did you want to talk more?
I'm kind of lost with this on mute and putting the, yeah. Okay. So actually saying something about that is funny because since my son was 4 years old, this is not just from parents. It's incredible how also on physical activities, like I was taking my son to gymnastics, soccer, and all those things. And after exercising, the first thing that kids get is an ice block.
McDonald's voucher.
Bag of, sorry, I can feel it. Or a bag of something. And I was taking my son. I said, my son was looking at me, should I get, say, no, like I get some blueberries and things like that for him. So like, share this with your friends. And all the other kids were like, what's that? So again, since they're kids, and we're talking that they're coming there to get healthier, to get active, to get, you know, with the sports mentality. But then you tell them after, it's like in Mexico, we have this custom, you play soccer and after that you have the beer. So what's the point? Okay. So it's not exercise at all, it's a social thing again. But in terms of a diet, I like to put it really easy for my patients. Just have a picture of your plate, divide it in 3 equal parts, and 2 of that part are going to be colorful type of vegetables, like a salad all the, like, try to make it as much as possible, a green raw salad. And then the other third is your protein. Your protein is this size with this thickness. That's it. You don't need to count calories. You don't need to count anything. Like, as long as you can see green things and red things and really bright things on your plate, you know you're doing the right thing. Like, you always can, and this is an anti-inflammatory diet. You can make anything an anti-inflammatory meal. Like the other day, for example, I have one of these a tortilla, like a wrap, like flour wrap, which is inflammatory, right? Like, it's not something maybe I would recommend all the time. But I have the wrap, I have the whatever protein I was putting in there. But then I fill it with so much vegetables there. Like, it was a huge thing like this, where 90% was vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's enough to make it an anti-inflammatory dish. So you still can enjoy some carbs, as long as you don't, like, it's not that I was going to have 20 of those things, right? Like, not 3 or 4, like just one is enough. But putting a lot of vegetables will always make it an anti-inflammatory thing. Now, with the fruit, again, it depends on where are you in terms of your bowel. Again, if you have a lot of bloating, you have to consider what type of fruit you can eat. We usually say with an anti-inflammatory diet that you should have 8 portions of vegetables per day and 2 portions of fruit. But sometimes we can get rid of those 2 portions of fruit if you're getting too much bloating, and just use the vegetables. And that's enough, again, to make it an anti-inflammatory. And when I do testing for the metabolism with the metabolic breathing test, the main thing that reduces you from using your carbs is adding vegetables to your diet. Every time I measure on a high level of carbs in my body, the next meal I just put a lot of vegetables in there, and the next measurement is going down, and I'm starting actually burning some fat. So it's as easy as that. So just putting a lot of vegetables is not, believe me, it's not rocket science. It's not restricting yourself. You can still eat the things that you like, but add a lot of vegetables. Wrap it with vegetables, like, just as that, like, easy as that.
And I think people think it's harder than that, and it's not. It's so easy. And, you know, if you look at your plate, as Oz said, and just break it into those 3 sections, so that constitutes the macros that Chelsey mentioned: carbs, fats, proteins, guys. That's as simple as your body needs to get. And if you are struggling to get those 8 serves of vegetables, okay, it can be hard. You can juice things. You can get supplements as well that can help. Obviously, they're supplemental, so they're not to be relied upon all the time. But things like green supplements as well, you know, having that as part of your day can be useful. And because 8 serves of vegetables can sound like a lot for somebody that's having none. But it's not about being perfect, guys. It's about starting where you're at and making tiny changes. And so hopefully after what you've learned today, you might be able to take away some really key but simple ways that you can effectively start to change your gut. It could be just finding 2 minutes a day to start turning off your brain, and, you know, maybe adding some more leafy green, colorful vegetables into your plate, and reducing some of the inputs that you're giving it, which are highly refined carbohydrates and processed foods, or you know, all of those things aren't that great for you. They're designed and engineered to keep you eating them. That's their point. Maybe it could be just to drink that extra mouthful of water, just a mouthful of water. It doesn't have to be, oh my God, I gotta get 8 glasses of water. And yeah, okay, that's great, you do. But also, if you're only drinking half a cup of water a day, starting with getting that extra mouthful and finding ways of keeping yourself accountable to that, whether it's setting alarms in your phone or putting reminders out, or going out when you do your weekly shop and buying some extra vegetables. You can go get steamed fresh vegetables, guys. You don't have to go get fresh veggies if it's just not within your scope or your realm of possibility. Things like steamed fresh veggies, which are pre-packed, they're snap frozen, they're still okay, better than nothing. It's more expensive, but, you know, it's cooking them. You can put them in a microwave, you know, if you have to. You can put them in a microwave. It's 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes, go do something, and you got your vegetables there. Just making it easy for yourself, guys, is the really big part of changing those habits. I think the biggest mistake people make is they think that they have to be perfect. And when they don't think that they can be perfect, they don't even bother starting, because their fear of failure and judgment overrides any chances of making small changes. But guys, the smallest change can have the most profound effect on your life. So please do not think that if you can't do all of it, you can't commit to SIBO, there's budgetary constraints, blah, blah, blah. There are no excuses. No excuses. And if you are watching this on replay, please hashtag replay. Some people have been doing that, which has been great. You can still ask us questions. But guys, it's not that hard. If you are struggling with accountability, get a coach. There's one right here. I help people stay accountable to these habits. That's what I do. It's teaching you the basic stuff. And you are really struggling to know where to start. Even though I've got Chelsey and Oz here who are really, really good at what they do, it's sometimes just that basic habit change stuff that you're struggling with. And that can be useful to just get the ball rolling. And then when you need a little bit more help down each of those habits, this is where other practitioners can come and help you. You can get
build
that
a support
expert
team.
advice.
Yeah, build a support team.
Absolutely. And I think that's really crucial for you. And to tell people that you want to make changes, tell people that you've got gut problems, go get it looked at. It doesn't have to be a thing that you live with for the rest of your life. You shouldn't be bloated, guys, all the time. And so do we have any questions in the chat? I don't think we do. Not today. And so do we have any closing remarks just in regards to gut health, guys?
Yeah, it's a great place to start. Everybody says that it's your second brain. Everything starts in your gut. And like we said, just eat a little bit better, breathe a little bit deeper, sleep a little bit more. So all these little things, and look out for it in your children as well.
Yeah, my advice is just start getting to know your body. Know your symptoms, know what is right and what is wrong, and start doing something to change that and feel the difference. And when you feel the difference, you don't want to get back to where you were before.
Nothing tastes as good as healthy feels.
I've been trying to figure out, you might have seen me disappear down here. I was looking for some sticky tape and I was going to try to turn my boob sign into poo. I was going to try to cover this bit up and add a little bit down there. But I couldn't find my sticky tape.
And guys, don't be scared to look at your poo. It's a weird conversation. And we can talk about that another day, but there's a thing called a Bristol stool chart. If you are not sure if you're constipated, go Google Bristol stool chart and it will give you pictures of poo. But this is a great conversation piece if you do have kids. And I like that you just mentioned that in closing, Chelsey, about your kids, educating them. There's no reason that you don't have this conversation at the dinner table, but there's no reason that you can't have conversations about, what normal looks like, because I think that people realize, people get so scared of going to the toilet or talking about defecation, but it's a process, and it can actually tell you a lot about yourself, whether it's if you've got bacterial overgrowths, if you are constipated all the time, what that actually looks and feels like.
If it floats, if it sinks, there's so much about poo.
Because what comes out is telling you what's happened inside your body. So maybe maybe we can talk all about poo another day.
Do you want to do kids next week? Do you want to talk about kids' health, what we can do?
Well, we could. Let's see what questions come up this week.
Yeah.
If anybody's got any specific questions, because this week's chat came about because a few people asked about gut health. So thank you, Layla, for bringing that up. But as always, guys, if you are watching this on replay, please hashtag replay so we know you've watched. Ask us any questions in advance. We're always happy to discuss any topics that are on your mind. If you are joining us live, you have joined us live, thank you very much. We always appreciate your attendance here. You can find this, if you are watching it, I come to you from the past or the future, but Chelsey puts this in her boob camp group, so this goes live stream to boob camp. She also puts it in circle, so if you'd like to listen to the full replay, I pop this on my YouTube channel, and Oz puts this on as a podcast where you can find anywhere where you like to listen to your podcast. But thank you so much for joining us, guys. I'm Loz Antonenko. I have Dr. Oz Cooley and Chelsey Jean, who we don't use her last name. It's just Chelsey Jean.
It's Chelsey Jean.
Chelsey Jean.
And thank you guys. Thank you.
Thanks so much, as always, and we'll see you same time, same place next week. Ciao for now.